I never try to be cute. There's no time to be cute. But I do try to make every second count, and hence some devices to try and make rememberable the things that I share for those who want to. With the exception of 1 hour, I lay awake all night last night thinking about today's opportunity. The first I've had to slip past the up till now perfect record of the DC Activist Club and the environmental activist clubs who've kept me totally off stage. And I wanted to think of the 1 or 2 or 3 things that I needed to share with you that could make all the difference. And there are 3, which I'll try to emphasize. But there are 3 of 15 that provide a broader context, and I'll try and share those with you as well. This discussion with you may be the reason that I left a $500,000 house 13 years ago, that I left a $300,000 a year job as a turnaround expert in the computer industry, devoting my life to saving people's jobs rather than seeing their companies get flushed. I saw the Titanic going down. I saw America going down. I saw the economy going down. And I needed to do what I could to get out in front of it and see what I could do to help. It may have been all about this presentation to you, or this may just be 15 minutes that you can have fun ridiculing. We'll see. "15 fuel rods to power your resurrection." You're dead. And if you're not puking scared, you don't get it. You don't understand what the 2,000 leading economists on the planet understand. You don't understand what the 3,500 degreed climate scientists understand. There's nothing clever I'm going to share with you, except maybe for an integration and the unwillingness to turn away from how terrifying it is. And that's fuel rod number 1. You're dead. Oh, I can't leave school now to fight this. I need to think about my future. You don't have a future. Your future, best case, is Hunger Games. And for your children, it's worse. That's the truth. That's the fact of it. Unless you change the direction now, and you have months, you will be the first of the next 50 generations that, unlike every generation prior that enjoyed Mother Earth, you're going to be fighting her just to survive. That's your reality. That's the economics of it. That's the environmentals of it. That's the truth of it. That's point number 1. Currently, you're dead. Point number 2 is, you have everything that you need to stop it, except for one thing, which is really 2. You have all the finances. It's being spent now. It's being misspent. You have all the technology. You have all the social science. You have all the problem analysis. You have all the examples of how citizens stood up to change things. You have everything you need, except for one thing, which is really 2. You lack the will. You lack the will of the Egyptians your age a year and a half ago. You lack the will of the freedom riders back in the 60s. You lack the will of the civil rights workers. You lack the will of Alice Paul and her sisters. And in lacking the will, you lack the know-how. When you have the will, you will have the know-how, and that leads me to the next 2 points, 4 and 5. And I mentioned that there are 3, if you only remember 3, and here's one of the 3, number 4. If enough of you stop turning away from, stop being distracted from the hell that the scientists and the economists and the social scientists say you're headed toward correctly, and turn and face it and refuse to look away and embrace it and become a home for it, bear the near unbearable horror, then that will ignite number 5, the most powerful force on earth that is responsible for every major social advance that's ever occurred, and that's the ignition of the human heart. See, the human heart only ignites when the body is bearing the near unbearable horror of present circumstances. Alice Paul and her sisters bearing the unbearable horror of generations as far as the eye could see of women subjugated to men. The unbearable horror of the Egyptians looking at 30 more years under a brutal dictator, Mubarak, and on and on and on and on. When the human body bears that pain, doesn't turn away from it, doesn't get distracted from it, doesn't deny it, the reaction happens. The heart comes online. The heart comes in charge. The heart is the highest form of human intelligence. That's the 80% of the nervous system that Einstein said we don't use. It's the seat of intuition, inspiration, courage, vision. Think about it. Think about the civil rights workers. Think about the women suffragists. Think about the Egyptian revolutionaries. That's what happened. They turned toward the pain. They embraced it. They stopped looking away. They refused to look away. And that ignited the heart, and all the rest happened. So that's 5. 6 through 9 are the 4 things you need to understand about your threat. And they're magnificently laid out in a book called Plan B 3.0. One of my blogs is Tracking Plan B. You're crazy if you don't search it. Tracking Plan B. There are 4, the equivalent of 4 meteors, each Earth-killing meteor, each future-killing meteor headed toward Earth. If you let any one of them touch down, it's done for you and your kids and grandchildren for the next 50 generations. The first, and I wish the only, but the first and the most immediate, is the carbon meteor, the CO2 fuel meteor. You have 8 years to reduce the use of CO2 fuel 80% by 2020. Maybe a little bit more time than that. James Hansen, who's earned my total trust, indicates that if we bend the curve down 30% in the next 8 years, that will buy you enough time. I'm going to stay with the 80% for now. The second meteor is Earth rape and putting Earth in intensive care. Her lungs are ripped out. And what lungs remain, the forests are being burned. Her oceans are on deathbed. Her topsoil is being blown into the oceans by billions of tons a year. And then two other, which are handmaidens to each other, poverty and overpopulation. Poverty is the cause of overpopulation. You're headed toward 10 billion people on the planet by 2050. And if you're all going to live at the standard of living of India, you can just barely do it. If you're going to live at the standard of Americans, that it only supports 2 billion. You need to solve poverty because that will stabilize population at about 8 billion. You can sustain that. So that's 9. 10, 11, and 12 are your 3 strategic objectives. And here's the second thing. If you only remember 3 things, this is the second thing from what I'm going to tell you. Every time a gallon of gas is purchased, 20% of the bill is paid and 80% of the bill is sent to you. Every $100 billion we spend on war costs today for Middle East oil is put on the debt. And guess who's going to pay the debt? We're sending the bill to you and your children and grandchildren in the future. Every ton of coal is built. You and your parents and your friends and neighbors pay 20% of the cost, and they send 80% of the bill, which are health costs that go on the debt, and more importantly, wreckage costs are sent to you in the future. If you guys wake up and find the moral outrage and the moral fortitude and the moral clarity, this isn't right. Mom, Dad, no, you are not going to balance the books on my backs and the backs of my children. Mom, Dad, I love you. It's not going to happen. Boss, I love you. College president, I love you. This isn't going to happen. Senator, congressman, I love you. This isn't going to happen. Mr. Exxon CEO, you're my brother. This isn't going to happen. This is going to stop now. If you're going to burn coal now, you're going to pay for it all now. The actuaries know how to calculate it. Now, when you bring a coal out of the ground, a ton of coal out of the ground, you're going to pay all of the wreckage costs, all the health costs. Now, you're not going to send it to me in the future. Think about it, friends. If you take that stand, who can stop you from taking that stand if you find that moral certitude? It's a no-brainer. Like the Freedom Riders found. It's a moral outrage that you will not be able to be turned from. And who can sustain the moral abomination of standing against you? Who can say, oh no, we should be able to balance it on your backs? This is your holy grail. You are not going to send me and my children the bill in the future. You're going to pay it now. By the way, the 2,000 of the world's leading economists all agree with that. It's number 10, I believe. 11 and 12 are also financial. You need to redirect subsidies from raping Earth to restoring Earth. We subsidize our fishermen, God bless them. We subsidize our coal industry, God damn them, not the miners. We subsidize the oil industry. No, we need to subsidize the non-earth raping energy forms, wind and sun. We need to subsidize forest restoration. We need to subsidize fishery restoration, ocean restoration. Just redirect those funds. And finally, we need to stop having a government contractor security policy. Our national security is supposed to be the focus, not the security of the war contractors. They're poised for 20th century wars against Russia. So the bombs, the aircraft carriers, etc. No, the Pentagon knows and has stated perfectly well, failing states is the 21st century threat. You need to redirect roughly a third of the defense budget toward what the Pentagon says are the 21st century threats, failing states. And now we're back to the poverty meteor and the population meteor. "13, 14, and 15 are this. There's a fatal trap out there. And if you step in it, or if you don't unviolently stop others from stepping into it, you're done. It's over. The clock will be run out, and then it's over. And that's violence. That's violating the rights of others. It's violating the property of others. You don't need to go there. You totally are infants if you go there. You're 2-year-olds in tantrums if you go there. You're outgunned 1,000,000 to 1. 1,000,000 war resources against whatever paltry little stones you can throw. And you lose the moral high ground. You lose the moral strength, which is your biggest weapon by far. Not only don't step in the trap, but put your bodies in the way of those who do. It'll increase your credibility instantly. Don't step in the violence trap. Be it total unviolent war. Unviolent war. 14. Understand who the most powerful group in the world is. Who is it? It's our kids in this country, 13 years old to 23 years old. You can think for yourselves. You can reason. You can figure things out. You can find a moral center. You can find what's right and wrong. And the people who control the disproportionate resources in the world are your parents, your elders, their friends, and people they can influence. Think about it on a personal basis. Whatever your relationship is with your parents, or whatever the relationship is of 13 to 23-year-olds is with their parents. Mom, Dad, I just got in a terrible accident. I'm a 10-hour drive away. I'm in the hospital. I don't think they're taking very good care of me, and I might be dying. What just happened? Everything your caregivers are and has just been put at your disposal. They're in the car, they're on the plane, they're calling lawyers, they're checking their bank accounts, they're doing what they have to. Well, there are millions of you in that age group, and if you wake up and you see what's being done to you, and as loving citizens, like the Freedom Riders, you unviolently stand and say, no, I am not participating in normal life anymore. That might mean I don't eat. It might mean I go on a hunger strike. It might mean I don't go to school. It might mean that I sit in on the college campuses until I get what I want. It might mean that I go and I, in a disciplined, self-sacrificial way, occupy the offices on Capitol Hill. But I'm going to stand in the way of this, unviolently, but I have the right, and I'm going to take that right. You are not going to send me the bill. 80% of the bill for your coal and oil, not anymore, stops today. And then the final thing is, you need to understand who does not have the power. The president doesn't have the power. The president has never had the power to bring about massive social change, or massive change of any sort. When enough Americans decided that they wanted to win World War II. That's when World War II was won. We figured out the rest from there. When enough Americans decided there were going to be civil rights, there were civil rights. Oh, but what about Johnson? Look at his political maneuvering. Look at the social programs he brought in. All he did was open a festering sore. The president can't settle social issues. He forced something that is the subject of the ongoing war between the left and the right today. President Obama is the best friend you'll ever have, but he can't do your job for you. He can't do the job of millions. Only you can do that. So don't waste your time on him. This is all up on Tracking Plan B. Google it, Tracking Plan B. The last tab you'll see on that site is a summary of what I've just shared with you here. And there's much, much, much more there. If I've just wasted 15 minutes of your time, it's 15 minutes of your time, big deal. Maybe I've given you something to ridicule or entertain yourselves. But if there's one of you here that finds that I've struck a chord that you're on, you can find me over the internet. I'm devoted to this 7 days a week, from the instant I wake up until the instant I go to sleep. No second is wasted from this. So if anyone here thinks I can help, and you're on fire, and you're going to unviolent war, you call me, and I'll do what I can do to help. Rather, you email me. I can't afford a phone. You email me.